Oh, Veeze, that's beautiful. That's a person.
That's me.
That's you.
Do you know what I like the most? Your beautiful smile.
Yes, me too.
This girl let me use the red.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, it's on. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Amazed by the Maze. Today was Veezy's first day of kinder, and I put in a couple of little clips of her going to kinder, and she is just so excited. Has been excited for months to start kinder, so that was a really, really easy goodbye and an easy transition, which is good. Makes it a lot easier on the parents. Today, how many ums? Just so everybody knows, I say a lot. I can't help it. I just say So today I am doing a sit down, get to know me video. Just to sort of get to know, so everyone can get to know who I am, my past, how I've got to this point, and just my life, I guess, up until now. So I do have some pictures that my mum, she gave me these ages ago, and I thought, well, you know, I'm a very visual person, so what better way to show you bits and pieces of my life than through photos. You already know the kids. I have photos of when I was pregnant with all of them, but I thought that's probably for another video, another time. So yeah, I thought we'll just go through everything. Oh, I do have some pictures here of Elle when she was a baby, and me, of course. So yeah, I thought we'll just go through. I haven't really got much time to do this because I have to go and do a kinder pickup and other things, so let's just get started. So my name is Bree. I'm 33 years old. I'm from Australia. Obviously you can tell by my accent. I am the oldest of 3 children. I was born in a hospital. My life was seemingly uncomplicated, I guess. I used to swim. I used to sing. I was in a choir. I'm not going to sing now. But, yeah, we just had a normal childhood, I guess, growing up. Both my parents worked. And, yeah, so here's a picture of me. This is me. Oh. I was a flower girl about 8 times when I was little, and they said it was because here's another one. It was because I was blonde haired. I'm not going to show the bride, because I had blonde hair, and they said I was really cute, so I just kept getting the jobs. Apparently. Here's me. This is me in, I don't know, I think I'm 10 years old. Mum wrote it on the back. Isn't she good? So as you can see, I always had trouble with my weight. Let's just start there, shall we? I mean, when I was really little, I guess it wasn't so much of an issue. But as far back as I can remember, I've always had trouble with my weight. I also have anxiety and panic. The panic disorder as a young child was really extreme. And then as I got older and I sort of got into the teenage years and I started, you know, drinking and going to parties and going out, it all sort of was suppressed, and I was fearless until I became a mum with Al. I was a single mum, and it all just bubbled out again. So I think it was this one. This is me at another wedding, or the same wedding. And I remember that wedding, I had to go and get ready with the other flower girls and the bridal party. And I just remember, like, my main anxiety came out in not wanting to be away from my mum. And I used to scream, and I used to just have this terrible feeling that she wasn't going to come back. I mean, I knew that she was, but my anxiety would just sort of take over. So yeah, so I mean, this video is a lot about anxiety, because I have, in the last, you know, couple of years, I've done a lot of work on myself to get to this point, and to get me here, which I'm really proud of, but it's not easy. So here's a picture of me when I was, oh, you can't really see that. I'm trying best to cover up other faces because they don't probably want to be in my video. Oops, that's my sister, but I've covered her. So this is me when I was about 17, I'd say. 17 or 16. And here I am again with Santa. Cute little blondie. For some reason, none of our kids are blonde. So I had anxiety as a child. My dad's mum had anxiety and she had OCD. Unfortunately, back, you know, in the 70s and 80s, it just wasn't a recognized thing. People didn't know why she didn't like to sit on seats, public seats. They didn't know why she had to change her dress multiple times a day. Apparently she had a different dress for cleaning and whatnot. They didn't know why she had to constantly wash her hands. And it was a really misunderstood thing. People just didn't understand it, and neither did I until it happened to me. It was happening to me, but until it all come to head, I didn't really understand it either. So she really suffered because she was probably misdiagnosed, and you know, it wasn't a thing that people really knew much about. My dad also has anxiety, and then it's trickled down to me. So yeah, as a kid, it's a genetic thing. As a kid, for me, as a kid, like, I was really anxious. I would sort of I just couldn't. My safe person was my mum. So my counselor tells me, and she's completely right. So yeah. So as I grew up, I think that the anxiety may have became sort of more suppressed. I was able to deal with it better. Definitely when I became a teenager, I'd get really anxious about going to school, especially if I was late. I didn't like to walk into a classroom and be the last one to walk in, and I would think, what if there's no seats to sit down? What if I've got nowhere to sit? And in primary school, I was like, what if I don't have someone to play with today? What if my friend is away? Like, I would go home and think about this over and over and over and over again, like, until the next day would come. Like, it was, and even in high school, I would worry and worry and worry, thinking, what if, like, my friends don't want to be my friends tomorrow? Who am I going to hang around with at high school? Like, it was just something that, I mean, and up until the last 2 years, I cannot remember a day that has gone by that I have not worried all day. And I just thought that, well, this is my life forever. I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. I didn't know how much help I needed. So I got to my teenage years, and I really enjoyed drinking. I enjoyed going out to the clubs. I was very, very carefree. I was, nothing really seemed to faze me. Everything was just whatever. I mean, and that's the way I liked it, because the anxiety was gone. I still had lots of worries, but the anxiety about people and places and whatnot had really disappeared, because I was sort of able to mask that with partying. And here's a photo of me from my, okay, well, I'm sure my mum won't mind if she's in it, but this is my mum and this is me. I think that's on my 20th birthday. So I was pretty much a into the blonde hair and into the looks were a very important thing to me. So yeah. And I think going out, the baby's crying. Okay. I was talking about how I like to go out and party. I like to drink. I went out every weekend. It was just the social. I loved being social. And I was working, and that was just my life. And then all of a sudden, a week after my 21st birthday, I found out I was pregnant with Al. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about her dad, but I knew from the get-go that I was going to be a single mum. From the moment I found out I was pregnant, I knew that I was going to be a single mum, and that's how it was going to be. So I sort of went from partying every weekend to basically being pregnant and staying home and preparing for this completely different life that I was going to have as a young single mum. So, I mean, I had the support of my family and whatnot, but the rest of it was sort of just me and her. And yeah. So, this is a picture of me and Al. This is when she's about 9 weeks old, I think. So, I mean, these stories are sort of like really choppy. I'm going from one thing to another, but I'm just trying to give like a quick overview of my life up until now. And then I'll talk more in depth about some things. So, yeah, I went through the pregnancy, and I mean, you can imagine the struggles with that. I mean, all my friends were still going out, they were still having fun, and I was at home. I knew it was going to be like that. I was at home, preparing to be a mum, pregnant, and it was really hard. Like, a lot of the friends that I had weren't, like, I sort of fell out of a lot of groups because I didn't fit into their groups. So people didn't understand why I couldn't do this, and I felt really, really judged. I felt extremely judged. I felt like people thought that I was just going to be a terrible mother because I was like the baby's fine. She's just a little bit sulky. She's okay. I will have to wrap this up in 2 seconds, and do it again and do the rest of it later. But I need to say this while I can think of it. I felt really, really judged. I think people, you know, assumed that I just was going to go back to doing what I was doing and palm my child off, which was not the case. I felt just so scrutinized for every single little move that I made, and I've taken that into now. And I'm finding that now when people are becoming parents themselves, I'm like, see, I told you it was hard. I told you, because, like, you know, I went from wearing makeup and having bleach blonde hair to, like, not really caring about my appearance because I was tired and I was a working single mum. I went back to work when I was 7 or 8 months old. And so I had a lot going on. We were living by ourselves in a townhouse. So I had a lot of pressures that I guess, if anyone is, you know, a young parent, single or partnered, it's a stressful time. It's stressful at any age, but you know, this is my experience as a young mum. I felt really, really judged, and really I had my back up to everyone. So I just sort of was wanting to prove people wrong, I guess you could say. Okay, I've taken off my glasses because that reflection is really distracting. Everything's blurry, but I guess I don't need to see anything. I'm just telling a story. So back to it we go. I'm sick of saying I hate it. I can't stop it though. It just comes out. Okay. So back to what I was saying. I felt really judged as a young single mum. I had pressures living, just me and Al were living in our own place, and I was working, and it was just a really, really hard time. But rewinding a little bit, I just want to talk a little bit about Al's birth. So I ended up getting to, I think it was almost 42 weeks, 41 and 5, I think it was. And Al was a very long birth. She was an instrumental birth. She was forceps. And it just wasn't coming down the birth canal. Like, she just wasn't, they kept losing her heart rate. She had a clip on her head. She kept turning around. So there was a lot of things going on, and they thought that maybe I might need a Caesar, but then I didn't. I delivered her naturally. And when she was born, she didn't cry straight away. And I remember they were rubbing her and they said, "Come on, little one, you know." And then she cried, and I was really relieved. However, I don't even know when it was. I don't even know. I don't think, because I had an epidural and I was in the birthing suite I got the epidural 2 hours before she was born, because they wouldn't let me have it because I had some sort of question mark infection. So then they cleared that up, and I had to wait until I could get my legs working and walking again. So I don't think I realized any of this, because she was born at 6 o'clock at night. So I don't think I realized that there was a problem until the next day. And I think that it was my mum that picked it up. It definitely wasn't the hospital. I don't know how. It wasn't, like, it was not written down. It's not written down on any of her birth notes. And even with the APGAR scores and everything that they do when they're born, like, they check their reflexes, and nothing was said, nothing was mentioned. And then they came in a couple of days later and addressed it. So what I'm talking about is Al was born with a a brachial plexus injury. So her arm was paralyzed right down to her wrist. She could move her hands. She could move her hand. It was the left arm, but that's all. Like her arm was sort of, I don't even know if I can show you. Her arm was sort of by her side and her hand was sort of turned around like that. So she couldn't lift her arm up. Like she could move this arm, but the left one was completely paralyzed. She had no use of it. So that was, I didn't even really know what that meant. Like I didn't foresee in the future any complication. Like obviously I knew there would be complications, but I didn't foresee what the future would hold for a child that has a disability. So I mean, I remember my mum, she was really worried, and I was just like, it'll be fine, because they did tell us that, you know, there's a chance that she could her arm, it could come back, like she could get full use of her arm back. It could be just a trauma due to the birth, and it may not be, you know, something that she will have for life, but it could be. So, you know, at 12 months old, if she still doesn't have the use back, they were going to talk about putting a scope in and just seeing what's going on. However, luckily at, I think she was 4 months old, well, ever since I brought her home, randomly, when babies stretch, her arm would go up and then flop back down. So that gave me a lot of hope that it would come back, and it did. At 4 months, she had full use of her arm, which was so, it was great. Like I was very relieved. So that was a big thing. And I thought, well, great, this is all we've had to deal with. Everything's fine. However, once Elle was about 18 months, she didn't really have a big vocabulary. Like she could say words here and there, but she didn't, I guess she was behind for her age. So, Elle had a speech delay, and I'm not going to go into heaps of detail with this because Elle's 12 and I don't feel like it's right for me to put out there what's going on with her unless I get her permission. I'm just saying the bits and pieces. So, you know, Elle's had quite a few struggles with her speech. We've done genetic testing. We've done an MRI because I somehow think it's connected to the brachial plexus, Bell's palsy, but or lack of oxygen. But that's just, I don't know. There's just nothing. We don't know what's wrong. We don't know why. Because she still has struggles with her speech. She can talk, but she still has little delays. So we don't know. We don't have a diagnosis for her. We're not too sure exactly what it is that caused it, and we probably will never know. And we just accept it and move on. So, yeah. So, I mean, that was a little bit of a struggle as a young single mum. I also felt judged because, you know, my daughter's not hitting these milestones. It must be my fault. They probably think, well, I told you, you know, you wouldn't be able to do this. Anyway, so we for the first 7 years it was just me and her, and then I met Heath, my now fiance and the father of my other 3 daughters. And I met him on the internet. And that's fine. I mean, no judgment from anyone. No, that's fine. I don't know. It's not even a big deal. Anyway, yeah, we met on the internet, and I just clicked with him straight away. He was just so easy to talk to, and he was just a nice guy. And he was so great to Al. He was just wonderful to Al. Like, he just loved her from the get-go, and she calls him dad. Not we haven't told her to do that. She just does that because she wants to, and she's done that from the beginning as well, because that's how she feels about him, and she's very protective of him, and that is the only father figure that she has known. So yeah, he just came into our lives, and it was great. Like, it was fantastic, and he is such a great role model to all the girls. So 8 months into our relationship, we decided that we would like to have a baby together. Very quick, to most people, but to us it just felt right. I thought it would take a while to get pregnant, seeming it had been 7 years since I'd had a baby, but it happened within a month or two. So along came veezy, Avia, and she came along. She had colic. She didn't sleep. She cried day and night. If anyone has dealt with colic and reflux, you know what I'm talking about. It was really, really hard. Thank God Elle was a really easy baby, because being by yourself or in a partnership with a colicky baby is really, really difficult. It's really hard. So we had veezy, and she grew out of her colic, thank goodness. And she's fine now. She's a wonderful little girl. So I started to notice that when I had veezy, my anxiety was really starting to hype up. And I think dealing with the colic and feeling like I didn't know what I was doing or why this baby was screaming day and night, that my anxiety just started to trigger off. And it just became intensified. Like, I didn't want to go, well, I didn't want to go, but if I would go for a walk, I'd be worried that we were going to get attacked by a dog. All these things that I used to be afraid of as a kid were starting to come up in my adult life that I hadn't even thought about, or I didn't even remember thinking about until, they started to sort of, bubble up. And I just was becoming really anxious, like to the point where it was just getting like ridiculous. I mean, the whole time that I had Al, and right up until I was pregnant with Mel, I would just worry every day. I would worry all day, every day. A lot of the times I would worry if I had something wrong with me. That's a big thing. That was my big thing. Like, have I got a lump here? What's this lump? What's this bump? What does this mean? Like, I would just absolutely over exaggerate it and stress. Not because I was being a hypochondriac, because I just couldn't help it. Like, I was convinced that something was wrong with me, and my brain just took over my body, and I couldn't control it. So, well, actually, with what happened to Al, with her brachial plexus, the pediatrician suggested that with all my other births that I have cesareans, because the likelihood of me having a brachial plexus child again is very high. And he said that this time they may not, the injury they may not recover. They may have a disability for life. And going through all this stuff with Al, I didn't even want to risk it. So Avia, all the girls have been Caesars, just to be on the safe side, and they've all been fine. No more injuries, which is really good. So we decided we were going to get pregnant with Mel, and that happened. And from the moment I found out I was pregnant, I was just worried. I was like stressing that something was going to happen. I was just, when I would resolve one issue, I would find another one straight away to worry about. And this is where everything came to a head in the pregnancy. And I just had sort of like a bit of a breakdown, really. I think it was like the 20-week ultrasound, or might have been the 12-week. They said that my placenta was posterior, which it's at the back. So to most people, they'd be like, okay, that's fine. But I started to research it, and because I already had, the internal scar tissue from the first Caesar, where the placenta implants, I really got far too in depth into like placenta previa, placenta accreta. I lost it. My mind just completely took over, and I couldn't stop it. I just was, it was the worst thing, the worst time. Like I was convinced I was going to die on the operating table having Amelia, because I couldn't see past my anxiety. And people were trying to say it's fine, and I'm like, yeah, it's not though. Like, and then I sort of would calm down, and then something else would turn up about that topic, and then I just lose it again. It always goes back to something happening to me. So as the pregnancy progressed, so did my anxieties. And I think it was at about, I think I must have been about 26 weeks when one night I was just that worried and that stressed just from like looking up everything on the internet, Dr. Google, which is a terrible thing to do if you've got anxiety. I realized that it was 6 a.m. and I hadn't even gone to sleep. I just hadn't slept, and I had to get up and do the school run and get veezy ready, and obviously Heath had gone to work. And I thought to myself, I don't know why I couldn't, or why I didn't fall asleep. Like, how can I forget to go to sleep? Like, my mind was just, I felt like a little bit of a crazy person. And this went on. Like, I eventually just stopped sleeping, or I'd get like, an hour or two here, and then the next night I wouldn't sleep at all. And then I got anxious about sleeping, and I got anxious about falling asleep. And I would call my mom at like 2, 3, 1, midnight, all those times, in the morning, because I was absolutely terrified because everyone else was asleep, and I felt that I couldn't do the basic thing that a human is meant to do, is sleep. And I was terrified, and I was pregnant. I had hormones, but it was mainly my anxiety. It was just all coming to the surface at the worst time when I was pregnant. And I felt like I couldn't cope because I wasn't sleeping. So the next day I was constantly worrying, how am I going to get to sleep tonight? How am I going to sleep? What am I going to do? Like, I'm going crazy. Like, this isn't normal. And it got to a point where I was just ringing Mum all the time, and I was so upset that Mum said, I think you need to talk to someone. And I'm like, you mean therapy? Like, I need to go and see a therapist? Like, that's a bit extreme. That's a bit crazy. Like, that must mean that I've completely lost it, if that's what I've got to do. Because to seek self-help to me was like really foreign. It just didn't seem like a natural thing. So I I went to my GP and I was put on some medication for my anxiety. I don't rely on a pill to fix my problems. I think that for me, counseling and medication went hand in hand. I'm still on medication and I still go to counseling. For me, both of them together worked well. I didn't think that I was going to take this medicine and automatically I'm going to feel better, because I had to get whatever was going on in here out of my mouth and figure out why I felt that way. So towards the end of my pregnancy, I started medication, which is a little bit sort of here nor there when you're pregnant, but if it's going to benefit, you know, the pros outweigh the cons when it comes to the mother's mental health, and that was a definite, for me, it did. So I think when Mill was 3 weeks old, I started counseling, and it's the best thing I've ever done. Like, I wish I had have done it years and years and years ago, because I feel like a brand new person, and it's given me so much more confidence, and it's just helped me understand myself. Like, I've still got heaps of little things that I'm just like, oh, why do I have to react like that to this situation? But I mean, I'm only human, no one's perfect. So when Mel was about 6 months old, I decided that I would like to make a little page on Facebook for local mums in my area to catch up and go for walks, and it has just been such an amazing success. Like, we do catch-ups and we go to all these different activities. It's in our specific, like in our area, in the town that we live. It's in our suburb, I guess you could say. And we do activities, we do catch-ups, we have discussions, advice, and there's you know, a couple of hundred mums on there that I tell my story to, and so I've met so many amazing mums, and you know, so many people are like, oh, I felt exactly the same way, and I'm like, well, me too, because I wish more people would share it, because at the end of the day, you know, we're all going through the same thing. So I made the page, and I was going to counseling, and I was feeling really good about myself, and I always knew that we wanted to have a fourth baby, and I was a bit terrified because, I mean, my sleeping was, by this point, like, the sleeping in the pregnancy, it was just something that I had to relax and teach myself to do. I did have to have some medication to help me go to sleep for a few weeks, just to calm me down and relax me. I don't anymore, because with my counselor, I've developed different techniques. I wear a sleep mask on my eyes so I can't see anything, and it blocks out all the distractions. I listen to pink noise because the babies do, and I love it. It just, can't sleep in silence. It's an anxiety trigger for me. So we really wanted to have a fourth baby, and everything was going really well, and I was a little bit terrified, just thinking, you know, what if everything sort of falls in a heap again, and I've got 3 kids already, and, you know, what if I can't cope? But luckily I coped. Everything went well. Like, I've had gestational diabetes in my previous 2 pregnancies, so I got it again for a 3rd time, but everything else was fine. She had a little bit of trouble at birth, but that's for another time. But the pregnancy went good, and I was still going to counseling and doing everything that I needed to do to be the best me and best mum and partner. And yeah, so I guess that brings us to now with me, Heath, Al, Avia, Amelia, and Violet. So that is our family. Oh, I did forget to mention the night before Mel was born, we knew we were going in for a Caesar with her. Heath proposed. So that's a nice little story to tell Mel and all the other kids. I said yes, of course. Yes. So that brings us up to date. Oh, I swore. That brings us up to date of where we are. This is our family, and that's a little bit. That's our story up to this point. So I hope you feel like you've got to know us a little bit better, and you can come along for this journey of our family.